chair. Get my glasses. What do you want to talk about? Pastor Steve.
Well, let's start.
How about doing a? Can you put that on YouTube?
I could put it on YouTube, but I was just going to use for writing our book together.
Our book.
I wasn't going to put this on YouTube, just to remind me what you've been through, kind of thing.
We're gonna write a book.
Yeah, weren't we? We were going to write.
I wanted to write something. I'm not sure. Like, I need sort of a computer. What are you looking for?
Well, we could.
Okay.
Put down a record of.
What the guitars I own.
For if you ever get a lawyer, put down a record of what you want the lawyer to know.
Yeah. Especially for Cathy.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it on? Is it on yet?
Yeah.
Well, Cathy is developmentally challenged. I met Cathy walking down the street near where I lived in Toronto. And I met her at the community center where I frequented. And a month later, I just bumped into her. She said she wanted to be if I would be her boyfriend. Now there's 18 years difference, but it didn't seem to matter much. And Cathy, her mom was a crossing guard in Toronto Police, just down the street a ways. I met her mom. They invited me for her dad's birthday coming up in April. Well, it just went from there, and Cathy had, her father was abusive in alcohol and that, and she faced a lot of challenges even in that right. But Cathy went to a special needs school, and I got to know her very well and got to develop to know Cathy, even to marry her and love her that way. So that's what happened after about 5 years of going with her, and we were married, and her mom gave her away. Charlie got in a drunken thing and assaulted her before we were married, and he was in jail, so her mom gave her away. So we're together like 8 years, Cathy and I. We're trying, things weren't, she's lured all the time in Toronto. I feared for Cathy, and the crimes are happening a lot. And her mom went into a hospital having to have stomach cancer, and it was horrendous to Cathy through that. And we had a outreach worker, Kathleen Smith, that was working through respite care that I needed her, particularly through something like this, and she abandoned us through that. Cathy has episodes of volume in her distress of her voice is something like childlike. And the thought of losing her mom, she can become quite almost hysterical. It takes a person to understand, something to calm her. A friend that was good at that was Karen Kaboski. One time we were at the hospital, Cathy. Cathy has no one but her mom, particularly her dad, but no one else. Other people have used her to the effect of abuse and whatever. She got to know me through that, and I know what abuse is and things like that, and could understand sort of how to be with Cathy through that. And even though there was an age difference, but so what other people think. So we were married, and there was a point where her distress, and it's quite troubling, and her volume of her voice through her challenge needs an appreciation to be sensitive to. Now she has a close friend she speaks of that took her life before I knew her. I would not want Cathy to act on anything like that. I've had these feelings myself, and I know what those feelings are. So to be beside her through that, she needs me through that stuff. There's no one else there for her. And these people that surround her and take her to those ends, they haven't even met me. And Cathy is, in a way, of her distress, that it looks like well, I'm getting blamed for that. That's her father mainly that's put a lot of, I've been with her 8 years. I sort of worked through it. I can understand it, and she needs me through that. And then there was a point where her mom was in the hospital, a surgery, and the possibility of her mom not living through that, her condition became insurmountable to her. We were in the cafeteria area of St. Joseph Hospital. Cathy's mom was upstairs, and to settle Cathy down in the cafeteria, and she cries. There's something now the nurses there and doctors are professionals, and I'm sitting there trying to counsel her, and they all left, every single one of them in that area. They couldn't deal with that or even help me through that. I'm sorry, look.
So what happened to the mother? Is she okay?
She survived the surgery. They caught it. But she didn't have proper follow-up. The doctors there, they're pathetic. The for 2 years and took her without emergency. It failed a number of times. They misdiagnosed her and finally sent her to another hospital. Back there was, and she was full of cancer. It was too late. It went through all her organs, and the doctor we saw at the University Hospital or on University Avenue, I forget the name of the hospital, they were very good there. The St. Joseph failed too. They left a small piece in her stomach, and by the time they discovered it, it was too late and it spread through her other organs. Now, the church community behind us, Mary, Cathy, and I, that vineyard, and Bob Buckley, and it has fallen short of how it really should be from what I'm seeing through what they're doing is a huge fail. Cathy hates them because of this. None of them would see her mom when she's in the hospital. Now, there was a example. Cathy is with me in our some members of his church were worship leader Doug Habosky, and they have a music studio, and his wife there, Karen Habosky, had us over at their place about a week, and I went downtown. Cathy was there. That was very good to help us a bit, and we was trying to get in a shelter in Scarborough, and I had to go downtown. I used my bicycle even to save the transit. And I came back later in the day, and Doug Habosky was coming out of his apartment there as I went up the fire escape. Said that Cathy was really sick. Well, I didn't know what to think. So I went in. Cathy was in the living room under a quilt, sleeping. But it wasn't just sleeping. I sat down and I made a call to the shelter in Scarborough. We had all the medicines to get there now. I said, "Okay, Cathy, let's get going." She's sitting not too far from me. I said, "Let's go, come on." You miss Cathy? She's baggy. And she's no response. So then I noticed this area beside the where she's sleeping, about 3 feet wide. I didn't know what it was. Some spill of something that went over, and then it was like vomit. I pulled the blanket up from Cathy, and she's unconscious. She's white in the face, and I thought she was dead. So, she was just breathing very shallowly. I have emergency first aid and knowledge from college. I knew what to do I checked her breathing right away. She's breathing very shallowly. The only way I could tell she was alive, she still had temperature in her face. Her teeth were clenched. Her eyes I could not open to see that she was alive. It was just... The vomit was nearly 2/3 dry beside her. So she'd been laying there for a while, a couple of hours like this. I cleared her airway. Her teeth were clenched. I managed to do that. Got my ear down to her mouth to see if she was breathing at all, and she was. She was breathing very shallowly. I had my arm up under her shoulders to lift her head so her head would go back and her airway would be clear. And it's a good thing that her head was to the side like that, with all that coming out of her, because she was on, her head went back like this. You would swallow your tongue, and you don't last too long. You would suffocate and die. So I ran downstairs. I had my cell phone. I wasn't sure of the address. I was flying the stairs, and I got the ad coming back. And I said, "Get the ambulance here, 911 right away." And I had the and they were there within like 7 minutes. They come up there. Holy Jesus. And they attended to Cathy. She wasn't responding at all. Her arm would just go down like this. They put her on oxygen, and she wasn't coming out of it. And they were wondering about the medications. It all disappeared. That we were on the balcony space outside, and Karen moved everything from outside inside, and we thought that Cathy took all these medicines. There was about 3 full bottles that she took, and we couldn't find the bottles or nothing. Well, got her in the ambulance downstairs and to the hospital, and it was racing down there. Friggin', I was a wreck beside her. And then she started coming out of it halfway down Ronsonville's, and we're going fast, the friggin' ambulance to get her there, like, Jesus. And she just started coming out of it, and they questioned her whether she took those pills. She said she did. So what happened to the bottles, I don't know. But Cathy has a mind that's smart enough maybe to, I don't know, hide them somewhere. I don't know what to think of that to this day. We got her into the hospital, and they saved her life, actually. We gave her charcoal, and she was fine. And they saved her life that night, and I was so thankful for that. And she has enough challenge with her brain, and that could have been really badly. That was going through my mind. But it was the same Cathy afterwards. Now, Doug Habosky and Karen Habosky, I haven't been able to talk to them since about this. What Cathy did, she got in a bottle of alcohol that they had in their place for somebody as a gift. Now, I don't have alcohol in my place because I know Cathy, and she has no control, so I don't have that in my place while this happened there. Well, I wasn't looking for anything like that. They have wine occasionally or something. They really believe in that. Well, whatever. But they didn't come to the hospital to see Cathy at all. They stayed home and cleaned up the scene. Whereas maybe they should have had the police there wondering what happened to the pills or something. No, I don't know what to really think of them. Well, since that happened, I can't trust them to be with them ever again after that experience. Now, Cathy, about 2 years later, was eventually taken from me from community living. We're back in the city from Owensound. We went up there through a friend in Stainerd, Randy Heinzen, got our stuff in storage to move up north because the scene of where I'm living in Toronto, Holly Jones, happened there. My family wouldn't come and visit me anymore. Now, that little girl was murdered a half a block from where we lived. Now, I left at that point. I was in that residence like 14 years. And for somebody like Cathy and nobody in the church really seeing where we were through that or visiting her mom in the hospital, I really didn't want to know them anymore like that. I wanted to move on to a community where it was safer for her and I. And she's lured now and then.
So you're talking about the Vineyard, Bob Buckley's church?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We knew him a long place, and they were like 3 blocks away, not too far. They wouldn't until it's all done and it's okay, and then it's in a sort of relax. Oh, I need somebody there, particularly when, especially for Cathy, and it's horrendous. I had to padlock her in my place because she had feelings of taking her life. I just couldn't leave her alone.
And that was because of her mother being sick.
Yeah, in the hospital.
Yeah.
But none of them would help her through that. That's another thing. The experience of her mom dying, and none of them would see her, even her mom in the hospital. She was in the hospital a year for aftercare and eventually died. No, I put my heart and soul in this church at the beginning of that and volunteered a lot. I didn't have the money, but I did that through Treasure House Ministries and the soup kitchen. Like for 6 years, I was there every Friday night. I just loved it, doing that. There's some sort of community of people that I could do something. And then it's getting like...
Is that when you were a crossing guard too?
Yeah, well, that happened through that even after I volunteered like that in the church and the Scott Mission. So then in 2008, we're back in the city of Toronto. Cathy was having a breakdown a lot. Her meds weren't right, and we're homeless in the area of Kipling and Bloor. It's better for us to be in sort of that area and not too far from our friend. We got cleaned up and had a place in Bloor. We're back in the city, particularly for her, to get her meds, and I was trying to get her into the hospital emergency and actually put a letter on Philip Chuck's door. The weekend we were down there in this area, homeless. Cathy needed attention in emergency because we're back from Owen Sound. We had a place to go to live in Owen Sound that I turned down. I should have took it, $450 a month, and it was a beautiful place. We had new friends up there. The Victoria Center, I had something to do in ministry like similar to the Scott Mission, and we befriended someone that took us in their backyard. And anything about Bob Buckley would never do anything like that. He wouldn't even invite you for a couch or something to comfort you going through something like that. And then he comes up with some statement that just hurts. Like he says, well, they don't know you like we do. Now when I share this with people in the church community like that up there, they think they're a bunch of something we shouldn't have nothing to do with. What the heck is he like that? You know? Well, I kept going with them. They married Cathy and I knew a few people. Eventually, there's some that left there, and you never see them again. You don't know the answer why or anything. And there was more than just a few. There was quite a few. Now, the experience of Cathy and I, or Bob, what he's saying to me last year, really gave me the idea of how much he really does not like me at all. I knew it was there a bit, but to the regard of the degree of what it was. Said it last year, and I was in that hospital, and I don't want nothing to do with him ever again. I have an RCMP friend I have in Milton. I messaged her the messages he's sending me, and well, she said, well, neither one of you crossed the line to what that could be. You don't want to get it to there. And yeah, you're right, it's finished. You do nothing more with him if he's coming across like that.
What do you mean by coming across like that?
Well, it's he was saying things to me like if I lived on what you put in the collection plate, I'd be homeless just like you. I don't have access to a lot of money. What's he really looking for through me? And then he's like, he's being judgmental of my character. He says I get places out of pity, make people feel sorry for me, and get places out of pity. I really don't think that well, the support workers said, I'm sure this, no, it's nothing like that. This is a reality of what you have to do for a person like myself to get a place and live somewhere. This is Ontario housing. I'm looking for a place. What do you mean out of pity? I'm not doing that. I'm trying to provide as much as I can out of those shelters. I'm saving. Then he says, like, taxpayers are paying for people like me. And he says, you're right, you don't deserve the places that you've been in, and you should have stayed there because I told you should have stayed there. Now you're complaining about leaving and being homeless and blaming others. I'm by myself through this. I have medical reasons of leaving those places and doctor's letters to Ellen Lake. I said, why would I take your opinion, Bob? You're hardly there for me anyways. And look how you're judging me. And then he gets like, something like, why don't you go rent I was trying to get help to, for example, from Aurelia back to Cambridge. I had this hernia injury and medical things. I need to get back to the doctors. And it's like, I asked him, I text messaged him. I kept in contact like this through the years like this. And then it's like, he has a new BMW now, not the Camry, and it's not 4 seats in the trunk, he says. It's a sports car. And I said, isn't there somebody else in your church? You think I want to go in your new BMW like that? But then it's like, for me, I know I wouldn't ask them because it's a typical vineyard. They all drive luxury cars like Bob. Right, Bob? I'm getting pissed off at this. There has to be somebody in your church. You think I'd ask them? They never even bother with me at all. I'm asking you. Then he says, well, why don't you go rent a car? Now, I really have the avenue to do that. I don't even have a credit card. But I said, for me to even, for you to even expect that I can appreciate or do that, I'm looking for a friend to help me here, for Pete's sakes. I've known you for years. But why don't you resign as a pastor? Why don't you be the manager of a car rental company instead if it's all about the money? Then he goes into the spiel about what have you done for 30 years? This is what I need to hear, right? What have I done? Well, I have very low self-worth. Then I mentioned about the forestry, and it's like a conversation like, how long ago was that? Then in comparison to him, he goes further and says, I've been working since I'm 14, paying taxes since I'm 16. I said, well, I shoveled for cleaning cattle stalls when I was 10 years old, and driving tractors and laying picket slats when I was 9. What are you friggin' getting at? And it's so pathetic to think that I can relate to him. Then he goes into his spiel. I've been working like 30 years as a pastor, providing for taxpayer, paying tax. You should be thankful that you're in a country where it's obliged like like that, and half the taxpayers are paying for what I'm getting. Whoop-de-doo. What am I getting? I said, Bob, I volunteered for your church and worked there. I gave you my heart. I don't have the money to do that. What are you driving at? I said, you're not a pastor to me, my mom, or anybody I know. Why don't you resign? I said, we gave to your church, Cathy and I. You had a plan for getting a building on Dundas West, remember? No, you went and spent it on a sailboat journey and a luxury BMW car. And you speak to me that I'm in a place of getting places out of pity. You can have the places I have here. Go up to Owen Sound and see what it is. You think that's out of pity? Or the place in Wasaga that's 30 miles from a doctor, maybe appreciate knowing anybody to get to X-ray clinic. 10 miles away, it couldn't do in 6 weeks. You think I'm walking down, you know when I go down the road hitchhiking like that? You know how many church people go by driving cars like you're driving? You know how many stop and offer even a slice of bread? None. Not one. None. So it's getting like, and then he's trying to be a clique like this. I know where it's going to. I've had experience of something like this, and he's trying to drive me into some anger thing, so he'll text the police and have me picked up or something, but I got more sense than that, you know. I'm not that way. I'm not that far gone. So it's like, he says, then he goes into all the spew of what he owns, the material wealth. Then he says, because of what I put into that, it's like a deserving thing of, it's a blessing to have all that. I said, I want nothing you have. Nothing. Your house in Toronto, your house in Ohio, your condo in Florida, your 20-foot something sailboat, your sports car. And you tell me to any of this waking you up? I said, you need to shut up. You're immature to say that to me and judge me like that. I never want to see you again. I'm changing my number. You need to look after your church and people like Cathy, where she is. Our marriage is like this. I'm not your child. Speak to me. I'm not your kid or your spoiled Conrad son. I never want to see you again. You're immature. That's it. That was it. I feel sorry for you. And then I found Sue Buckley, his wife's phone number. I still had these messages on my phone in Wasaga Beach after about 2 months, and it was a Sunday. And I know she's there at their church, so I forwarded all the messages about this to her phone, and she doesn't answer. Give her some idea of what Bob is really, who she's sleeping with. I'm getting really pissed off at the vineyard out west. I'm in such a complaint. I run into one of their church members, Michelle, just last November, walking downtown Cambridge. I'm homeless. She pulls over, and I'm so upset with this Bob Buckley, what he's communicating to other pastors down here and leaving me. Other ones give him the right to lead me down the road like that. You know, I said, Michelle, I didn't recognize her hardly. I said, where are you from? She said, Bob's church, the vineyard. I said, oh, geez, you tell that Bob, I never want to see him again. So I'm getting like ranting there in the street all about this. And then she says, yeah, I left too, 2 years ago. She says it all. And she was in that church royally, way beyond me. She gave to her and him in tithing. He said, yeah, it's about the money that he's spending. Then I said this to Sue. I said, if he's coming across to get money like that from me, he's manipulating others, obviously, to use his position to have all what he has. And using people like me to get others to believe that he's helping somebody like me and Cathy to get what he has. She walks dogs. She's not a pastor, co-pastor in that church. She doesn't work as a co-pastor. She works as a dog walker full time. She does. She has a vehicle van. And look what she's doing. Now, if I was a husband, a pastor, allowing my wife to pick up after dogs like that and provide for what he's doing, do you really think I'm really loved through that? Would you treat your wife like that and leave her for a job and look what I'm doing? Now, he's invested in a wine exporting business to provide the taxes, what he has to pay, and he's complaining to me about like some freeloader thing that I'm doing. I said, why don't you go volunteer at the Toronto Police Crossing Guard, Bob? Make sure your granddaughter is crossing the street sort of okay, like the job I done. And I worked that whole job a whole year and was underpaid. In fact, I loved the job so much. I worked Ontario Works. The money I made for 2 weeks of the month was given back. I worked a whole year like that to get that crossing guard coat that Cathy's mom worked with for 22 years, and the boss was very good. To speak to me about what I do out of pity or whatever. I quit my job because it's almost run down. And look at what's he driving at. So I find Michelle said complain. They wouldn't say anything back. I tried writing the drop-in church that they go to on Wednesday nights to feed the homeless, and they wouldn't even say nothing back. And I knew this was wrong, what he's saying to me. So I even called the Scott Mission, but the Scott Mission, Andrew there works with Bob. They're like pals. You can't do nothing through that. So Michelle said contact their head church in Kelowna, BC. So that's what I did after there was an opportunity. I was in London, just past homeless, and the Salvation Army, went to the library, looked up their website, and I emailed the vineyard in Kelowna, BC about this. I got an apology. Well, did a lot for me. What I'm saying is the truth. And it's wrong what they're doing. And I'm not a pastor here. I asked to have his resignation, to boot him out of the Christian ministry if he's like that for 30 years. What's he doing? He's supposed to be an example to others what's going on. And he's offending a lot of people through that church I knew, and you don't see them anymore. And then they come back and said we'll be the answer that you're looking for, but you need to forgive and reconcile with Bob and Sue. I said, well, I know about that teaching. I said, that's not good enough. There's things about in the system of abuse is still a criminal offense. That needs looked at. I know how to forgive in that. I wouldn't be in my life this far and what I did to Scott and everything else. And what does that do for them, really? Just a scapegoat that it's okay to keep doing what they're doing? No, that's not good enough. Well, if it's like that, you'll never see me in your church again. In fact, you can tell him and your whole church not to pray for me, because that's not a Christian church to be there for me. I'll have the Scott Mission pray for me and deal with that in the right place. God, not judge me like this, because I know from experience anyone comes to me in a spirit of judgment, there's no healing at all through that at all. It's like something that Steve Adams does down the church. He's like taking an idea that gives them a right to do. It's not right. Because Jesus loves something about me. When I went into that surgery thing of the hernia before, I didn't want to come out. This person beside me, I didn't want to know these pastors of River City Church, and he's like this. After talking to Bob, he thinks that I'm a bully. You know who Jesus is, Brad? He's like this. Well, if I don't know Jesus so far through this, how many churches? What are you talking about, Daryl? Then he didn't even pray for me. And that pastor, I couldn't even want to see again. Then I'm in the hospital going through this surgery thing. A couple months later, I didn't want to call none of them to come there and see me. Nothing. The outreach workers wouldn't even come up there to see me. I'm entirely on my own. I'm going into this thing I've never gone through in my whole being put down like that. I didn't want to come out of it. But something somewhere, like my mom, no, I need to be here. So this person was beside me. There was like the surgeon and another person there. There was like 3 people, I think, when I was going into this. This is what I'm putting my life in. And then I asked, is there somebody here can pray for me? And the person right beside me was from some church north of the city of Kitchener. She said, I'm Christian. I put my trust in her that I couldn't these other pastors or Bob or none of them were there. Or even a church member wanted to know. And she prayed for me. And somehow I felt okay then going into this surgery. So then it would take like 30 seconds. I was all prepped for this. And they said, you can feel assured that we're there for you, absolutely. There was a scrub nurse and attendant, and I was in this area like that this part of the hospital, there was no one within like that you could see anybody else. It was in an area that was pristine when I went in. I couldn't believe this, and it was like something like I don't know. Anyways, it was very quiet. There was these 3 persons, and I trust them completely. And then they put the injection of the thing, in 30 seconds, I was out. Now, I don't remember any pain at all. And then coming out of it, just over an hour later, it was all finished. I woke up and they're right there for me. And they had me on the operating thing, or wheelie thing to, and then I started talking about Daryl, this pastor, and why he was with me at Starbucks. They couldn't believe this. In this other church, well, this before the Steve Adams thing happened. This was developing through other pastors like this till he got the notion to do something too on top of it, eh? They couldn't believe this. And these nurses, they know some of these churches I'm talking about that they're doing this stuff. And then it was like I'm in some place somewhere where Jesus showed up. And I didn't want to go back. And I didn't want to. I felt good just here. Maggie's being looked after by the security. She's registered then beside me. It's fine. I just want to be here. Then it was like the coffee that Daryl or he bought for me at Starbucks, and he says when he first come back, he says, "You come here for free drinks." I said, "No, I don't." And this conversation with him, that Daryl, pastor of River City Church, had a fallout because of conversation like this. And he come and saw me. I'm trying to find somebody to connect with Cathy. And I'm coming into the church. Then it becomes something hard like this. And he comes with this worship leader, Ken, I believe, or his name is. And they come to see me at Starbucks. I'm doing a watercolor in front of me. And he asked me, well, if you want a coffee, and then I mentioned about the milkshake thing was like $5. And he bought it for me. And then he comes back and says, and he sits down, and he says, "You come here for free drinks." I said, "No, I don't. I'm having my spruce tea when I don't have. I come there often, every few days I walk there." And then it's like the RCMP friend, Ken, wanted to talk to. Now she knows me as a friend, through this. I contact her occasionally, and this one time Daryl was up on some vacation thing. He came back, and I was in distress about Cathy and that, and then he called the police, but I left that evening, and then found out, I walked to Starbucks, that he actually called the police to come over to my place, and they were looking for me. I was messaging him, and they said he would see me to sit down with me. Well, he lied, because 2 officers come over where I was. They're thinking I'm going to take my life or something. It's nothing like that. I'm just looking for some help for Cathy, and I'm sitting there with a milkshake. I said to those officers, "Does this look like I'm looking to take my life? Having a milkshake with my dog?" So they said, so that finished it with Daryl of River City Church. Then I had this conversation with him that was like trying to reach him through that. I said I didn't want to see him anymore either. Finally, after a few weeks, he saw me with his worship leader. And it was a conversation that was judgmental to me a lot. I've never had anyone ever accuse me that I was a bully, like he said, or ask me, do I know who Jesus is? He's going to ask me that, and well, he is. He's a pastor there. And then the other worship leader wants a conversation with the RCMP officer friend I have. I said, well, I don't know. I have to ask her. And then they gave me a page of 10 rules to follow about coming back to their church. And then they left, and I was in tears. You never prayed for me. What the heck is this? So the next 2 days I spent about I wrote 14 pages of notes to respond to their letter. And I tried to, wanted to meet with Daryl to talk about it. He wouldn't even see me. Wouldn't even bother answering my messages or nothing. So he's like this. I don't know what the heck. And I'm trying to resolve it. I don't like to leave things like that. So, what happened then? I don't know what to think about. Then they had a new pastor come in there. Well, he didn't last too long. Chris Hutton, they hired a new pastor in that River City Church, and then it's like I got along with him just fine. He didn't judge me like that. In fact, I think because he got along with me so swell and the rest didn't, they got rid of him. They fired him. And I couldn't believe that. To reach somebody like me, and he was from Sarnia, a young pastor, they looked for another pastor to help with that church. They were talking about growing and stuff, and then they did this completely out of the blue. Well, I had a ukulele that I brought that Sunday, particularly for his wife. That was very nice, and I made a strap on it, handmade, as a gift for him, because they invited me for Christmas. I couldn't get used to this ukulele. It's about $80. I got along with place, and she was a musician. And I went that Sunday to get, and then they had this announcement that I thought there had been some bad accident at first when they heard that something's happened with Chris, and they fired him. I couldn't believe that. So I messaged Chris. I don't know what happened or nothing. Well, they don't tell you at first, you know, it's all confidential. But I got to know him a little bit through it. He come to see me at Starbucks. I had this ukulele for his wife. Through that whole church of anything, he's the only one that invited me to his place for Christmas, before Christmas, like family, and I sat down and met his family. Now that's what I'm used to, but these other churches don't do that. He's from Sarnia. I couldn't understand why none of them at River City Church or that Pentecostal church or that Forward Baptist church would invite me to their place like this. That's what I'm used to, and they wouldn't. Now, I'm looking for what's Bob showed me, this scripture that speaks to that. It's in James 1:27. You can't call yourself a Christian church if you're doing this. To truly say that true religion before God is to visit the poor, undefiled before God is to visit the fatherless and the widows in their affliction and the poor. If you don't do that, and the church, the true religion, a true Christian church is called to do this, that hurting person is left in that condition, they will die eventually. They'll take their life. So the church is particularly called for the oppressed like that to pray and heal them and bring them into a flock where they feel like family again. That's what the truth of what the church. Now if they're not doing that, and look how I am, there's your answer. They're not a Christian church. They're too judgmental. He's like a psychiatrist. To label people like that, that's what a psychiatrist does. In fact, that's a false teacher. Now if you're doing that in the position of a pastor, there's serious results of what happens with you before God in heaven. You can read it in Hebrews chapter 6, 1-10. And it defiles the Holy Spirit. Only in that maturity and knowledge of that position that will happen. It's only a sin in the whole Bible where it is not forgiven. And if you're doing that, and gifts of the Holy Spirit that you're doing through the church, especially in a position of a pastor of years, you can lose your soul right to heaven if you're doing that. Now that's up to God. This is like playing Russian roulette with a gun in a position, taking a position of God and judging others. Matthew 7:1. The degree that you judge others, like with the response of me to come through the judgment of what they're saying, is the Holy Spirit is offended in me. They don't know this about me because they don't spend time enough with me to know that. You want to be sure, because if you offend that, are you going to take a chance passing some person on the highway, well, I think I can make it. That's what they're doing. Well, I made it this time. You passed somebody? No, my driver education teacher, Cal Edwards. I was highest in my class in driver ed. They gave me an award. I'm smart like that. Probably a better driver than any of them in that friggin' church when you look at it. And Steve Adams says this, you burn bridges everywhere.
Who's Steve Adams?
That pastor at Ford Baptist Church.
Oh.
Then he called the police. And he actually does what he's claiming I do. He called the police, burnt the bridges of me and him, and left me down the road. He actually does what he's accusing me of. So there's the answer too for that. He's not a pastor. He's an accuser. He can say that before God. And when he's up there, he's going to find out. I don't burn bridges everywhere. I can call the Scott Mission or go there and worship anytime and they appreciate me in that respect. But these other places, like Bob is doing, and Pastor Darrell at River City Church, there's another one at Calvary Church, another one at the Vineyard. It's something about my mom on Mother's Day. And also for Baptist Church, these guys all know each other. They have pastor meetings and parties and meetings with their wives and that. And they all get together and get this. It's like this. Like I said out west to the Antonio, he wanted to have a coffee with me. I said, I'm no longer in Toronto. So Bob is just like this. He wears a white collar on Sunday. The rest of the week he turns into a reptile with a 50-foot tail to devour me. Is that what he's about? Yes. That's what he's doing. An accuser. That's what he's doing. That's what these other ones are doing. That's taking a position of accuser to judge somebody like that. Now, who gives me that sort of thought to know, even say that? I can read you in the Bible. He says, now I'm out there struggling in the field. I have no one to go on with my life. And a thought like this for Cathy, and those tears are overwhelming and heartbreak can't comfort anything. I don't want my life of anything. It's not worth nothing of what these people seem to think in the church. And it's getting to me. My self-worth is going under me. So I cry out in that moment. And then this is said to me. And it sure isn't some pastor like the four I've seen here, or any other church member, or Bob. I love you more than 10,000 suns and stars I made in the night sky, Bradley. Now, I love you more than 100,000 suns and stars I made in the night sky. Now suddenly I'm getting goosebumps on me. You know who's saying that? You can never take him away from me, Bob, Steve, Darrell. You can never take the love of him out of me. I feel sorry for you. I feel terribly sorry for you. I don't burn bridges. I fought forest fires. You accuse me? That is about who I am. I am who you say I am is who you are. And I said that to Steve, right there. You offend that spirit in me, it'll defend itself. That isn't me, that's God. If I can speak back to that. He said that you didn't see me, you don't say hello to me once in a year. And he comes up to me, you burn bridges everywhere you go. I said, no, that's about who you are. How can he speak back? Church, this is how he deals with it. Well, that's probably one of the worst things you could do with somebody like me. Now, why is the Spirit-filled Christians leaving the church? That probably answers it right there. That's why. They offend the Holy Spirit in them. They're looking for some place to nurture that and fill that. And they don't find it in churches like this. This is why you won't see me in that church. And Bob and the whole rest. And you can speak to a church like this, with confidence. If they're doing that and hurting you those ways, just say this: don't pray for me. Don't pray for me at all. Now, if they keep going a place and do pray for you, they offend the Holy Spirit in that particular realm, and they will face judgment of what they're praying back to them as a curse. I know this. So I told them, when I run into forward church members at Tim Hortons, how come you don't come? Who are you? We're from Forward Baptist Church. They're going to give me some change for a coffee. I'm sitting there in the middle of the night, and it's cold. I'd like to have a coffee, which I had enough for. I don't want your change. You take it and give it to Steve and tell him not to pray for me. I never want to see him again. They look at me like, how do you deal with that? Can we pray for you? No. Because you're not a Christian church. Well, you left me down the road is not an example of a Christian church. I have people who pray for me and care for me and love me. They don't leave me down the road. You take your coffee money for him and tell him not to pray for me, and I never want to see him again. I guess that's the finished of that.
Okay.
When I was with Andrew, I just loved being with him and the opportunity to do that. Where I couldn't do any other church. You gotta tithe so much or belong to leaders and never really give you a chance to do nothing. But beside Andrew, I was writing a song every 6 weeks or so in 4 years. I really missed a Tuesday when I did this with them. This song here is on the 4th fret. The chords I don't even know. He wrote that part. I mean, it's just something that sounded out and goes like this.